Hi, class. I talk a lot about using a conversational tone or conversational language when delivering your presentations. This lesson is going to be a little bit longer than some, but it is intended to explain in more detail what I'm talking about when I refer to conversational tone. So I'm going to go through the 6 basic techniques to speak in a conversational way. It's similar to how you would speak to a friend if you're just having a chat at a restaurant or over a cup of coffee or whatever, but it's not quite the same. And I want to describe how it's similar and how it's different. And then I'm going to offer you a description of a bonus technique, which I refer to as creating the illusion of eye contact, which is what I'm doing right now as I record this. I'll talk in more detail about it at the end of this lesson. Okay, so the first technique or the first element of conversational tone is volume. And I don't mean just starting at the same volume and maintaining the volume all the way through. I don't necessarily mean being loud or soft. It's a little of all of the above. So one of the things that we want to do is kind of differ our volume. Some of us tend to speak loudly. Some of us tend to speak softly. There's no good or bad or better or best with that, but you want to adjust your volume based on the audience, the circumstances. Since our conversations, our presentations are done on Zoom where you have a microphone, really speaking loudly isn't necessarily important, but you still want to be heard. And perhaps more important, you want to kind of tweak and adjust your volume. So if you're getting to something that is particularly interesting or that you're particularly passionate about, you might want to increase your volume. If you're talking about something that is sensitive or difficult, you might want to decrease your volume. But you want to be aware of your volume as one of the elements in making a presentation in a truly conversational way. I think one of the most important elements of using Vocalics in making these presentations is pitch. And what I mean by pitch is a high pitch. You raise your voice like this, and a low pitch is down lower. And it doesn't have to be huge, but adjusting your pitch as you do when you speak naturally, normally, conversationally to friends is really important. The difference between using pitch and not using pitch can be the difference between creating interest from your audience in receiving your information and turning your audience off. So pay attention when you're just talking to your family, talking to friends about how you use pitch, and then try to incorporate that kind of different style of pitch, higher pitch, lower pitch, and everything in between. So articulation is simply how clearly you speak. I'm going to talk about here and on the next one how that differs from uniqueness in the way we say words. There are many different ways that we can say words that are still clear and well articulated, because we might have a regional accent. We might speak English not as a native speaker, and so we might carry with us an accent. We might have a Southern accent, a Midwestern accent, an English accent, whatever. That's okay. But what we want to do is to, however we speak, whatever intonations we use, we want to be clear in our articulation. And so you want to make sure that as you are delivering, that you are saying your words clearly to the best of your ability, And often that means slowing yourself down a little bit. We tend to want to go really fast. I'm going to talk more about rate here in just a moment, but we want to get through it. We want to kind of rush through it. When sometimes it's better to just really slow down, and in particular, if you're talking about something that has words in it that aren't always familiar to your audience, make sure that you are articulating carefully. There are a lot of words that we tend to say that kind of don't make sense the way we say them. So I say the word comfortable the way most of us say it. But that, if you look at the spelling, and if you listen to particularly articulate people, it's comfortable. Well, I didn't grow up saying that. So long as the way I say it is clearly understood, then it's fine. But you want to be careful. Particularly is another difficult where we tend to say particularly. Those kinds of things. Just be aware of the tendency and practice articulating clearly. So pronunciation is similar but not the same as articulation. Pronunciation often has to do with words with which we're unfamiliar. And here's where rehearsing just becomes so important. Whether you speak with an accent, either a foreign accent or a regional accent or whatever the case might be, is less important than learning how to pronounce certain words. If you're delivering a presentation that includes, let's say it's about a healthcare issue, and a lot of you are nursing students or in med tech or whatever, and so you might want to be presenting on a topic that's healthcare related, and sometimes you might want to use big medical words. That's fine. If it's a word that isn't widely understood, make sure you explain what it means, but perhaps just as important, practice saying it. It's always surprising to me when a student gets to a word that they clearly haven't said very much or ever before and aren't quite sure how to say it. And if you read through when you're rehearsing and you vocalize your presentation and you get to a word and you realize, I'm not sure how to say that, make sure you note it and go find out how to say that word so that, and it might be someone's last name, it might be just a word with which you're not familiar, but it's not a problem to have an accent, to be who you are. It becomes a problem regardless of when and how you learned to speak English if you mispronounce words in such a way that your audience can't understand what you're saying. I've already made reference to this, but rate is really important in establishing a good rapport with your audience. Our tendency for most of us is to speak too quickly. I have this tendency myself. I have to make a concerted, thoughtful effort. I have to be very intentional about slowing my rate of speech down, particularly when I'm delivering a public speech in front of an audience, whether it's a recording like this or standing in front of a group of people. I have to tell myself and remind myself, slow down. You don't need to rush through this. I often say this to students. When we begin to speak in public, time begins to move at a different speed. It usually moves very slowly, and so part of that is we want to rush through it. We want it to be over with, and we think we've given a 5-minute presentation, and we look down and it's only been 3 minutes. And so you have to practice matching your rate to your content to deliver within the time required. This can also sometimes be an issue if someone tends to speak too slowly and they will extend their speech too long. But the more common problem is speaking too quickly. Either way, on either situation, you don't have to speak at the same rate as everybody else. Just one that allows you to deliver your information and convey the meaning to your audience so they can understand you. Finally, and maybe if not the most important, certainly one of the most important things to remember is modulation, by which I mean changing it up. When we speak just conversationally to someone, we tend to speed up and slow down. We raise our voice, we lower our voice, we raise we change our tone, our pitch. These changes are modulation, and they are natural. What happens when we deliver a speech or presentation is we're so focused on getting the words right that it comes out monotone. And we've all been in presentations, in classrooms, in situations where the presenter, the teacher, the speaker speaks in a monotone voice, and pretty soon we can't listen anymore. It's just unnatural. And so once you get the basics of your content down, this is where rehearsing just becomes so important. Learn to modulate yourself as you do naturally. Play it back, record yourself presenting and play it back and see how you're doing and focus on it. Make it an intentional part of your process. Finally, this is not something that has to do with how you use your voice, but it's a really important tip and technique to, again, connect with your audience. And it's particularly not difficult, but something that you need to pay attention to when we're delivering as we are in this class on Zoom. You can create the illusion of eye contact, and I've been doing it throughout the recording of this lesson. I am not looking down at my screen to see what the words are on my screen. I'm looking into my camera, and that creates the illusion of looking at you with direct eye contact. That can help connect with your audience. That does not mean you've got to be staring at your camera the entire time. You can have notes here. You can have things that you're looking at. In fact, there are times when you want to look down or you want to just mix things up a bit. But you also want to, from time to time at least, create the illusion of eye contact by not looking at your screen. And when you're presenting on Zoom, that's where the images are of your audience. So there may be 5 or 6 or 7 of your classmates there on screen. And of course you want to look at them, and you should. That's helping you connect with them. Helping them connect with you is also remembering to look into the camera and create that illusion of eye-to-eye contact.